All right, thanks for finding us on the Powers on Sports podcast. We are going to do a little potpourri around the sports world, and no better person to do that with than the man who has a potpourri of jobs in the sports world, Mr. TJ Rives, Buccaneer Radio Network, Big Fight Weekend podcast on the boxing world, Three Dog Thursday podcast for the college football and NFL underdog world. Well, and about to be a participant in the first ever trip to Munich, Germany for the Buccaneers in another week or so. So welcome back, Mr. Rives.
Always good to be with you. And for those that are seeing us on video, I do always have hats over my shoulder. Yes, I probably do have too many hats, as I keep saying. I could open a lids store right now at the mall if I needed to. But that's, as I keep saying to you, maybe that's better. I guess it is better than not being busy and not having enough going on, is having maybe too much going on. So yes, a ton. Wherever you want to travel here, I'm at your disposal on the Powers on Sports podcast. I know you want to emphasize a lot about Buccaneers, et cetera, but we can talk about whatever you like. Whatever you like.
We're going to go around the NFL world for a couple minutes. We're going to get a World Series thought. We're going to get a little college football, and I'm even going to get a little. Let's start with the boxing since that was most recent. What'd you think of the Silva-Paul fight on Saturday night? I actually was out somewhere and actually watched the entire fight. Is Jake Paul? Is this just him wanting to fight guys that he knows he can beat, but non-legitimate guys, or does this guy legitimately have a beef where he wants to be a legitimate boxing guy?
You're obviously an insightful guy. We're hearing that every week on Powers on Sports, and you've hit on the key question with this. Is it going to go to the next level where the YouTube social media influencer turned boxer now starts to fight legitimate boxers? It's got to get to that point. I mean, the hardcore boxing fan has hated this really for the last couple of years. The only thing that I can say is he's early in his career. He's taken advantage of everything at his disposal for attention, for money, for whatever that goes along with it, and he's maximized that. But now you're at the point where you got to go fight legitimate fighters. And look, 2 points. First of all, the guy he was fighting is an MMA, UFC, Ultimate Fighting legend in Anderson Silva. But
he's 47.
47. That's correct. So it's a qualifier on being able to beat him, because you could make the argument that a younger guy that had some skill or whatever may have had Jake Paul in some trouble, because Anderson Silva hit him a bunch.
Right.
And he's got to tighten up his defense. By the same token, I'm not shilling for Jake Paul here on the Powers on Sports podcast. He doesn't need it anyway. He's got millions and millions and millions engaged every which direction on his Instagram, his YouTube, TikTok, everywhere. But he was trying to fight legitimate boxers earlier this year 2 different times. One of them is the half brother of Tyson Fury, the WBC heavyweight champion. Tommy Fury, they were, Jason, as you know, supposed to have that fight here in Tampa last December, the first time, and Tommy Fury backed out of it then and didn't show. They had it scheduled again for the spring, right around May, and Tommy Fury again had visa problems, had issues. Didn't show for the press conference, and so about 2 weeks out for the fight, they canceled it again. So Paul moved on to a son of a former heavyweight champion, a heavyweight boxer himself named Hasim Rahman Jr.
Yeah.
Rahman Sr. was briefly the heavyweight champ in the early 2000s with a knockout of Lennox Lewis. So you got some name recognition. Hasim Rahman Jr. has had 13 pro fights. Right. He's a legitimate heavyweight boxer, but the stipulation was Jake Paul fights at around 190 pounds. He was not going to let Rahman come in at his usual fighting weight of 220, 225 and give up 35 pounds to this guy.
Right.
So the understanding was you got to move down in weight and be closer to my weight. The range would have been around 205, 210 pounds. You knock off 15 or 20 pounds and we can have the fight. So you get all the way to the finish line of this thing happening at Madison Square Garden in early August with Jake Paul, and Hasim Rahman screws around and doesn't get close to the targeted weight in the time frame that he was supposed to. And Jake Paul says, that's it. We were very clear on this. We're not fighting you if you're coming in the ring at 220 or 225. I'm not fighting you giving up 30 pounds when I'm a 190 pounder. Okay. So those 2 fights have gone away. Bottom line is what you said. He's got the buzz on social media. He's got the following, but if he's not going to fight legitimate guys in 2023, I think the interest in this wanes. I don't think the hardcore boxing fans really going to embrace this very much at all. Certainly not until he beats a bigger name or two, because even if he beats a name, hardcore boxing fans going to say, so what? That's a fluke. That's a lucky thing. You won a fight. He's going to have to beat, if you follow me, 2 or 3 guys, I think, for the hardcore to come around. For the casual sports fan, for the casual boxing fan, I think if he fights a little more credible boxing bred competition, I think he can still stick around. Clearly, we know this. He sold out the Emily Arena in downtown Tampa. He sold out that arena the other night in Phoenix. They were not giving tickets away. They sold over 14,000 tickets in that one. He sold out the downtown Cleveland Arena August of last year, where the Cavaliers play.
Who are a couple of names that the boxing fan might know in his weight class that is potential guys he could fight?
Again, I can't believe he would go back to Tommy Fury, who, again, has gotten the name because of his brother. From a cruiserweight standpoint, I don't really know that there's a noteworthy name that the casual fan would go, okay, I know who that guy is. Like, for example, the heavyweights, where Deontay Wilder from Alabama is, Fury is, Anthony Joshua. Those guys are much bigger than him, and they're never fighting him. That's not going to happen. So I don't know in that lull who it is, and it wouldn't be a big recognizable name, but boxing fans might know a couple of the names that get kicked around, and we'll see if it moves up. And Paul could fight a legitimate boxer and then go back and fight another kind of celeb MMA guy.
That's what we want to see. We want to see him fight a boxer, and not an MMA guy.
I mean, who knows? But for right now, it is what it is. He got the decision the other night. He's got his fan base. He's got his money. He's got his fame. He keeps mentioning the name Canelo Alvarez. Canelo near the end of his career. Canelo Alvarez would destroy him, Jason.
Yeah, right.
In terms of skill, in terms of power. I mean, he can blab on and try to sell that, but I mean, no one wants to watch that. He gets squashed by Canelo. So that's not happening, but we'll see what happens next with Jake Paul.
All right, let's go to the World Series. 1-1. We're taping this on Tuesday. Rain out on Monday night. Your thoughts? What do you think? Philadelphia, the underdog kids here, big crowd in Philadelphia the next 3 nights. What do you think?
Are you like me, where I have no use for either of these teams? Because Philadelphia, we hate automatically in Tampa Bay, have never forgiven the Phillies for beating the Rays in the 2008 World Series. We know all about the Eagles and the Bucs, the Flyers and the Lightning, of which Tampa Bay has the upper hand when you talk postseason on either the Eagles or the Flyers. But yeah, with the Phillies playing the Astros, who cheated their way to all their success, and several of the same guys from Altuve to Bregman to others are still on the team.
Yeah. No, we do have a Tampa kid, Kyle Tucker in right field.
Lance McCullers. I remember. I remember Dad, and you've been around like I have in this area. I remember Dad when he came out of Chamberlain High School and was a New York Yankees pitcher. Yeah, that's longer ago than I want to admit. And now Lance McCullers, Jr. is a former #1 pick and has already won a championship with them. Hurt his arm and come back. Yep. So there's a rooting interest there. I guess, for him, and he's going to pitch as we're doing this, game 3, right? They're giving him the ball to start at least game 3.
Yep.
The Phillies obviously were electric at the very beginning in this new wild card format where they were the 3rd wild card team and given no chance, and they haven't stopped hitting the ball all through October, and now we're into November. Did you know that if this thing plays out to Saturday, it's the latest World Series we've ever had? No World Series is played beyond November the 4th. So if we get to this weekend, if it's not over for somebody Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we get to Saturday, that's the latest the World Series has ever played. So I get that there's huge interest. What's fascinating is the Thursday night game now, because of the rainouts, is going to go head-to-head with the Eagles, who are undefeated, playing, ironically, hilariously, the Houston Texans in Houston, while game 5 of the Phillies and the Astros is in Philadelphia. So that's kind of wild. We'll watch it unfold this week. Just forgive me if I'm not copping out on you. I just can't root for either one of these teams. I think the Phillies will ultimately win.
I do too.
But yeah, there we go on that.
Yeah,
what's your thought? Are you thinking Philadelphia with me?
I do like Philadelphia. I think that home crowd mojo. I think they'll get back to Houston 3-2, and I think they'll figure out a way to win a 6th or 7th game in Houston. Because I'm with you. Dusty Baker's cursed. I don't think he's going to win a World Series title. The guy's had every chance in the world to do it for 20 years and hasn't done it. And I'm with you. I think Bryce Harper will emerge as the MVP. And it'd be interesting.
Here's the other question: will Major League Baseball stick with the format or change the format again? if the Phillies win the World Series, because they will have let a third wild card team in for the first time. It's the first time they're doing it. And the Phillies were like 15 games behind the Mets as the number one wild card team. Yeah, so you let a team in that's 15 games behind the first place wild card team, and they go ahead and win the whole thing. My point with that is, in large part, you're devaluing the regular season, big time, because you're already now, as it stands, letting, let me get my math right, 6 teams in each league, right, for the postseason to play in these series, 12 teams total. If you're going to let teams in as a third wildcard team that are that far behind in the wildcard standings, then your regular season, your July, August, and September doesn't mean nearly as much anymore.
But are you and I and the average baseball fan really worried about a Tuesday night in August?
Not as much. And certainly they've gotten what they've wanted, which is more teams in the race the final 2 weeks of the season.
Yes, exactly.
That's what they want. But I can understand where there's going to be plenty griping and complaining if the Phillies finish this off, because in every year before this one, and I'm trying to remember, in the pandemic year, did they let 3 wild card teams in? I can't remember if they let 3 in or not. Maybe
I think this is the first year. I think this is the first year of the third. In. Yes. Because they used to have the 1 game wild card elimination game, obviously, where they would get rid of a couple of the wild cards on each side.
So, but we'll see again for the Phillies. And the ratings were better than what they've been over the last couple of years, because they've been the lowest ratings ever for the World Series the last couple of years. It's come around a little bit, and Philadelphia's got a love-hate thing going on in the Northeast. So we'll see.
Yep.
We shall see if America cares on Phillies Astros.
All right, college football. We got a couple huge matchups this week. SEC matchups, playoff implications, and such. You got obviously the showdown, Tennessee, Georgia. Stay tuned for that. We're going to talk more in depth with that with Vince Ferrara from Knoxville here,
our
right
Tampa
after
brother from another mother, Vince Ferrara. Love him. In Knoxville.
Vince works for the Sports Animal up in Knoxville. We're going to talk to Vince when we're done here with TJ in depth on that game. But again, you've been around these SEC teams. You've covered a couple SEC games this year. LSU, Alabama's this weekend. Notre Dame, Clemson. So we got some definite upset alerts. Potentially here, especially, I think LSU's live. I think LSU's playing a lot better the last couple of weeks. Alabama's still Alabama. I get it, but Jaden Daniels and Brian Kelly getting it together a little bit in Baton Rouge. And then a tricky game, Notre Dame, Clemson. Your thoughts?
So the first thing is, we don't know this, but the college football playoff rankings are about to be out. So would you have Tennessee 1, Georgia 2? There's a great debate about that.
Yes.
That the Volunteers, with the wins at Pitt and the win at LSU, and now the win over Alabama, and then they just steamrolled Kentucky.
Destroyed Kentucky. Yep.
Of course, Georgia won a home away from home game over Oregon to begin the year in Atlanta, and that looks better and better the more that Oregon continues to win.
Yep.
Out west. It's fascinating for that game on who's 1, who's 2. Where does Ohio State fit in?
Right.
Where does Michigan fit in?
Where does TCU fit in?
TCU fit in? Where does Clemson fit in if they continue to win?
Right.
You mentioned Clemson, Notre Dame. That will be fascinating. We'll see here over the course of the next couple of weeks. Which again, it only underscores. We should underscore this when you see these college football playoff rankings. Under the current system with the Final Four, they're only interested in getting the 2 best teams to meet. It is not. It has never been. It is not in its current form designed to be a playoff to determine in the postseason who the champion is. This playoff has basically been to ensure the 2 best teams play. That was the whole motive behind it when they started it approximately 8 or 9 years ago, was how do we get the 2 best teams to play? So the fascinating thing is Tennessee and Georgia are already playing. Ohio State and Michigan have to play. So these are like de facto playoff games already in the regular season. Alabama playing LSU. Alabama, if they went out, likely playing the winner of Georgia, Tennessee, perhaps a Tennessee rematch. Those are de facto playoff games to get the best 2 teams to play each other. And we shall see. I'm very curious about whether Tennessee can roll into Athens and get it done. I'm done picking against them because I went against them in the LSU game and they steamrolled LSU. I went against them last week for 3 Dog Thursday purposes, taking Kentucky and the points in that, and they destroyed Kentucky. Their defense is better than I think what a lot of people realize.
Yep.
My question, I'm going to go back to you. My question is, they're running into arguably the most complete team on both sides of the ball. Georgia's defense, probably better than Alabama's defense, better than LSU's defense. That's where I think the real key is. Can Tennessee do some of the same stuff on offense to Georgia's defense with Hendon Hooker, with Hyatt, the receiver? They've got Tillman now as the other. What do you think?
I don't see Georgia's defense as being as devastating as they were last year. I watched some of that Florida game over the weekend. Florida, third quarter, they got the ball moving a little bit. They made some plays. That Tennessee offense is so much better than the Florida offense. You got much better quarterback play caller. You got a running game. You got a good offensive line. Georgia had a big injury. Nolan Smith, I think, is going to be out. One of their Georgia's better defensive players is going to be out this weekend. I think the key is, can Tennessee keep Georgia under 30? If Tennessee can limit Georgia to 30, the question is, can Tennessee get to 31 or 35? And I think that will be a fascinating matchup in Athens. On the road, again, biggest road test they've had, obviously, but I think that will be the key. Is not necessarily. I think Tennessee will score some points. I do. Remember, they got their big receivers back, Cedric Wilson or Tillman. Their big guy's been out several weeks. He's back along with Hyatt, and I just like Hendon Hooker running the offense.
I'm smelling that you're going to talk more with Vince about this, but you're liking the Big Orange.
I do.
Maybe in this game. And bear in mind, again, Alabama, very similarly last year. I saw them a couple of weeks ago with Mississippi State. They know they have to win out, win the West. But remember, they did that a year ago off the Texas A&M loss. They won out. They won the West. They won dramatically in the Iron Bowl. Remember, at Auburn, drove the length of the field in the final minute, won the game like in double overtime. Once they got to the title game, you and I were in Atlanta. We were not at the title game watching, and Alabama just took Georgia apart behind the house with a strap and whipped them. And so if you're the Tide, you just want to take care of your business with LSU, take care of your business with Ole Miss next week, get into that championship game, and maybe get your rematch with Tennessee or get another shot at Georgia in the championship game to play your way into the college football playoff.
Because if you're Tennessee or Georgia this week, if you win this game, you got a loss in the bag that you can still get beaten in the title game and go. I think the winner of this game,
which Georgia did a year, to your point, Georgia did a year ago, and Alabama has gone with a loss in years gone by.
For sure.
So you're right. If you win this matchup, Tennessee and Georgia, you are in some ways creating a cushion. You don't want to lose, but you're creating a cushion that if that loss is to Alabama in the championship game, you can still get in the playoff. I agree with you.
Absolutely. So I do think you'll see an upset in one of these three games. I think you'll see an upset, either Notre Dame, Tennessee, or LSU. I think somebody's going to pull one.
Wait a minute. We're having the election like in a week now as we release this. Are you running for political office? We're going to have an upset in one of these three games. That's not good enough on the Powers on Sports podcast.
Give me Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
And I think Tennessee will take Georgia to the wire.
And Notre Dame looked great last week against Syracuse. I was all over them for 3-Dog Thursday. I could not understand why Syracuse was the favorite in that game, and it proved out to be correct. Marcus Williams is a defensive mind, but I mean, they have figured some things out on offense. They run the ball. Clemson has been vulnerable. They went to the kid at quarterback for the Syracuse game. The young redshirt freshman, Klubnik, and is he going to be the guy? All right, so no, I'm maybe backing you there on Notre Dame as the upset-minded team against Clemson. Not
sold on DJ at quarterback.
But listen, Saturday night in Baton Rouge, I've had the privilege of being there before on Saturday night, and that place rocks even more.
Wild.
Remember, 2 years ago was the pandemic year when Alabama clobbered them, and they had about 15,000 people at Tiger Stadium, 20,000 people because of the COVID-19 rules. So now this is a totally different situation. And again, I was fortunate to work the game with Tiki Barber last year. LSU was a 26 or 27 point underdog and hung right in with Alabama. We're physical on defense against Bryce Young. A lot of guys from both teams were in that game a year ago.
And Jaden Daniels, mobile quarterback, always giving Saban problems. The mobile quarterback playing pretty well. Brian Kelly. People don't realize LSU 6-2. Fluke lost to Florida State. They could easily be 7-1. I mean, they were
coming. Very impressive, especially in the second half against Ole Miss 2 weeks ago.
Yep. They destroyed
and let's just see, and that was in the same setting in Baton Rouge. Let's just see what happens here, because again, Alabama knows their season's on the line. I will say this too, in terms of the mobile quarterback, Will Anderson is the pass rushing defensive lineman / linebacker for Alabama, and he may be the best defensive player in college football.
Yes.
So he'll be shadowing Jaden Daniels. That's going to be a fun matchup to watch.
You got it.
On Saturday.
All right, listen to the Powers on Sports podcast. I'm here with TJ Rives, Buccaneer Radio. We're getting ready to get to some NFL here in just a second. He also hosts a 3 Dog Thursday podcast. It's now in the video version on YouTube. So
Very nice.
Check it out. I know he does a daily Bet US show. He does some stuff during the week, does some gambling stuff during the week, some football stuff, and some that stuff. So definitely we'll let TJ promote all his stuff here in just a minute. And obviously he hosts the Big Fight Weekend podcast as well, all things boxing. So, all right, let's get to, we're about the midpoint of the National Football League. Here in our beloved Tampa, our Buccaneers are probably the biggest disappointment in the league through 8 weeks. Just give me a general overview of the Bucs, quick thought of we know it's bad. We know they're struggling. I still think there's hope. I hate to say this, I think Brady's off-field stuff being finally finalized and cleared up might help him a little bit, free him up a little bit moving forward. But just your thoughts. You're on the sidelines every week. I've not seen a lot of passion out of this team. That's what's really disappointed me, is the lack of passion I've seen exuded by the team throughout the season.
Yeah, they have faced adversity really since losing the Kansas City game on the Sunday night, and save for like the first half, maybe 3/4 against Atlanta, they haven't put a full game together other than that. So that's puzzling. There are things that obviously concern you. The offense has continued to be inconsistent. Now, you had a great start to the last game Thursday night with the Ravens. I would submit, and I'm not apologizing here, I'm just comparing because I've done this for long enough. If they had played in Carolina that first quarter that they played against the Ravens, both sides of the ball, they're up 14-0 on a bad team that would have quit, Jason, in that game against Carolina with an interim coach. The problem is they sputtered. They almost wandered around aimlessly for the first half of that game, especially after Evans dropped the bomb that everybody saw and everybody's talked about. They let Carolina gain confidence. Our analyst Dave Moore, the former Buccaneer tight end on Buccaneers Radio, kept saying, you're empowering these guys. You're giving them belief that they can beat you. So the beginning of the game is not everything, and we saw it in the Baltimore game. The beginning of the game was only critical to get you the lead, and after that, they were able to figure out what the Buccaneers were doing offensively and stop them, and were able to run the ball and wear the Buccaneer defense down, putting them right back out on the field.
Right.
So, but I submit to you, you've seen some signs that things can be better. And let's see if the start against the Rams here looks good. This is a team that has had Sean McVay, that's a coach, and a team that's had the Buccaneers number over the last couple of seasons, even going back to the 2020 Super Bowl year. Remember, they came in here and won on a Monday night in front of very few fans because of the COVID-19 restrictions. So we'll see. One
of these teams will have 6 losses after 9 games.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at this. The Rams are 3-4 because they've had their bye week. They would be 3-5. Buccaneers would be 3-6. That's okay. But who had that coming out of this game, that one of these teams is either going to be 3-6 or 3-5? I mean, you have an NFL NFC playoff picture right now that has Green Bay, the Rams, and the Bucs all on the outside looking in.
Right.
Who had that even when the year got underway for the first 2 or 3 weeks?
Right.
That all of those teams in week 8 would be outside the playoff picture.
And everybody in the NFC would have a winning record or 500. Everybody in that division's 500 or better in the NFC East.
Well, yeah. Look at Philadelphia. Look at the Giants and how good they've been. So in any event, you mentioned Brady, the personal stuff, and does it refocus him? You would hope so. You've got to get back to a couple of things. Number one, adjusting to the adjustments. Obviously, a third time, obviously. This team has not done a good enough job as games go on adjusting to adjustments that the other teams make.
Right.
That's why you keep having problems in the second quarter and the third quarter, being able to run the ball and effectively score in the red zone. You got to adjust to what other teams are doing to you, and they haven't done nearly a good enough job of that. So let's see if they can put a complete game together. I know there's a bunch out there, and you're going to probably ask me about it here in a second, about, you said passion earlier, effort, another thing. Those things better be corrected. You've had 10 days from the time you played Baltimore until we get to this game on Sunday. to get revved up, to be focused, and to play with enthusiasm and play like your season is on the line, because it is. If you drop, this is not an overstatement. If you drop a 6th time in 7 games, I don't want to say it's completely over, but you are in big, big trouble if you don't come out and play with fire, play with passion, and win this game. And by the way, this will have been a 4th loss in this stretch of losing 6 times in 7 games at home.
Right.
Protect the home field. It's not like all these games are road games. You already won the 2 hard road games at the beginning of the year. Protect the home field and be able to get it done. I mean, the good news on a couple of fronts is the Rams are struggling, and they don't run the ball the same way Baltimore runs the ball. So they should not be able to take advantage the same way that Baltimore did. And Matt Stafford is not Lamar Jackson on the read option going around the end. They should not be able to run the ball on this defense.
I agree. No, I agree with you. All right, couple quick thoughts on the NFC. Obviously, you have Philadelphia, you have Dallas. To me, San Francisco's reinforced now with Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, my goodness.
What do you like in the NFC?
The 49ers are coming on. The Cowboys look good defensively and seem to be protecting Dak Prescott a little better. They haven't been spectacular on offense. The Eagles obviously look good. Jalen Hurts is coming into his own. But again, if the Buccaneers could get in front of the Eagles, they have mojo over Philadelphia, especially in the postseason right now, including a big win a year ago. And those things might matter. So, yeah, the NFC appears to be the East, and everybody else trying to figure it out. And the Minnesota Vikings have done well with a first-year coach, but you wonder if that's going to hold up. So let's just see. You want a little ray of sunshine?
Yes.
You want a little ray of sunshine? If the Buccaneers can just get to like a 5th win and a 6th win towards the end of this season, we saw a 7-9 Washington football team make the playoffs 2 years ago. That team was 2-7. I looked it up. They won some games late. They won their final game to go 7-9 and made the playoffs. 2014, Carolina Panthers, 3-8-1 through 12 games. Remember how bad the Lovie Smith Bucs were? Everybody else was bad in the NFC South that year. They won their final 4 games of 2014, Carolina, with Cam Newton to finish 7-8-1, and the one tie was the tiebreaker to beat the Saints, who were 7-9 to win the division. My point is, get to a 5th or a 6th win for the end of the schedule that has Arizona, Carolina at home, and at Atlanta, which the division could be up for grabs in the playoff spot in that game in Atlanta at the very end of the year. If you're at a 5th or a 6th win, you're in it. You're still in it. That's the idea.
And the other key of these next 2 weeks for the Bucs is their NFC games too. So they're tiebreaker games.
Sure.
Seattle and the Rams, who are both wild card kind of teams. So if the Bucs, for some reason, maybe the Bucs' only chance in is to win the division. We don't know. But if they don't, if they're in that wild card hunt, these are going to be tiebreaker games.
Point.
Rams and Seahawks these next 2 weeks.
And really, I mean, the losses that you've had, Pittsburgh, and also Kansas City and now Baltimore, they're not for tiebreaker purposes the same as you mentioned, to losing to the Rams or the Ravens or the 49ers later in the year, that you may have to have a head-to-head. You've already lost to the Packers that could be a head-to-head for a wild card. But my thing is, it's a bad division still. The New Orleans Monday night game looms big, but those last 3 games at Arizona Christmas night, Carolina at home, and then final game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium against Atlanta, your playoff spot is within your reach if you can just get to a 5th or 6th win by then. And I think this team can do that.
Yes.
Just get in range for the 8th, the 9th victory to win the division. Maybe to win 10 right now, and I know you got to go in a second. To win 10, you've got to win 7 of your last 9 games.
Right.
All right, maybe that's doable.
9-8.
Probably
it's
more,
a 9-8. 9-8.
Probably more realistic that you're like 6-3, maybe 7-2, but 9 wins is probably going to be enough.
Yes,
we'll see.
It will. I agree. All right, let's go to the AFC quick. And the Buffalo, Kansas City, the clear kings of that conference through 8 weeks. Who else do you see in the AFC? Do you like Miami? Do you like Baltimore?
Can I tell you, Baltimore with adding Roquan Smith to their lineup, and they already got Jason Pierre-Paul, who's trying to come into his own. Remember, he had no training camp, no preseason, etc. They get Calais Campbell, who didn't play in the Buccaneer game, back, and you got an outstanding coach. They scheme, they adjust, They are tremendous. They're going to be a contender. And I think Tennessee, by the same token, we haven't mentioned them. They get Ryan Tannehill back healthy. It'll make a difference. But Malik Willis, the young quarterback, but they got Henry running the ball. They play defense. They've got experience. They've got to show it in the postseason. AFC appears to be much stronger. Miami, too. I was impressed with them, with Tua. If they can keep him upright in the explosive offense, they've won games. They've made big plays. They've made big plays again against Detroit last week. The AFC very competitive, but Kansas City and Buffalo look like the two top teams, like they may be rematching again. The Bills, a complete football team, and boy, there were a lot of people that were knocking Josh Allen's inaccuracy in college and playing against lesser competition in the Mountain West. That guy has developed into one of the premier quarterbacks in the NFL, making the throws. And so Buffalo, I would say Buffalo's a favorite. Would you agree with that? Buffalo's probably the favorite, even though Mahomes and Kansas City have been right there.
I agree. Those two teams are the cream of the crop to me in the AFC. My one fear for Buffalo, and this is a Josh Allen thing, he refuses to run out of bounds. One of these days he's going to get hit, and he's not going to get up. He's going to get a rib injury, a kidney hit. He likes the contact too much for my liking when he runs the ball. I don't mind him running design runs, but get down or get out of bounds. He initiates too much contact. The
phrase I've heard is know when the journey is over.
Yes.
And oh, by the way, throwing the ball away is not the worst thing either.
Yes.
Just throw it away. And so we'll see. But with them, especially if they get home games in Buffalo in January, hello, in the cold and the snow for those guys. And we'll see. We'll see if they can hang in there, have home field advantage. So should be wild. And I promise I will report back not only after the Rams game, but after we head to Germany for the first ever NFL game in Germany. So we leave, my understanding is we leave on Thursday. And so we'll have an opportunity on Friday and Saturday to go see some things in Munich and in and around Munich. This is the first ever NFL game, preseason or regular season, in Germany. So, and who knew? Welcome to the 2022 NFL, where the Buccaneers were supposed to be really good and Seattle was supposed to be awful without Russell Wilson.
Right
now, as it stands, the Seahawks are really good, and the Bucs desperately need this game because they've been bad as of late. Welcome to the crazy NFL. So I'll report back after we go hang out in Munich. I'll report back here on the Powers on Sports podcast.
You got your sauerkraut and all that stuff ready to go.
I'm not a big kraut guy, but I will eat. I've eaten schnitzel, and they have the pastries. I'll have to go try some different things, and I'm not a beer guy. Everybody's about Oktoberfest and how Oktoberfest will have just ended, but I will go see it. It's interesting to me about playing a game there. Of course, this is the 50th anniversary. I know you got to go. 50th anniversary of the horrific terrorist attacks at the Munich Summer Olympics, where the Israeli athletes were murdered and killed. They have a remembrance there. They have a memorial there. I would like to go see that. There's a lot of culture there. And
might even catch a Bundesliga game. Bayern Munich.
But we got all kinds of subplots that don't have anything to do with American football. So they're going to look at us as outsiders and aliens. But we will have fun being there, and then it will be between the lines between the Buccaneers and the Seattle Seahawks, and the normalcy will be there for that game. We'll see what happens, Brother Powers, for that one in Germany in a couple weeks.
I'm going to give you one more minute to make comment. Our buddy, Mr. Cadillac Williams, now the interim head coach at Auburn. What do you think Auburn does?
Him. I don't know what's going to happen. It's a mess there. I'll work the Iron Bowl. I keep promoting things. I'll work the Iron Bowl. Alabama and Auburn. Cadillac never lost to Alabama, by the way. 4-0. Cadillac's entire family is Alabama Crimson Tide except for him. How about that? And he's now the Auburn interim coach. Good for Cadillac. He's been the running backs coach there. Yep. What else? Great guy. Let's see what he can do as an interim coach there and get that situation.
All right. Tell everybody where they can find all your great work.
Hey, follow me at Bucs Sideline Guy, Buccaneers Radio, 98 Rock. Buccaneers mobile app is where you can hear all of it. We've got the Bucs and the Rams this weekend. Big Fight Weekend is the website and the podcast for the boxing. And 3 Dog Thursday. The show is on BetUS TV. Podcast, wherever you get podcasts, 3 Dog Thursday. We love picking underdogs. College football and the NFL. Always great to be with you, Jason Powers.
And I have to give Miss, now that he's on, I only get him on a couple times a year. I got to get during the football season. Got to give him a little credit. He is our Jason Light of the College Gridiron Coast to Coast Podcast Network. Yes. Our general manager gave me the opportunity to do the Florida Football Insiders podcast. And obviously we have a lot of other guys around the country doing other stuff, other conferences and all. So thank you for that. We've enjoyed doing that. Coach Levitt's been great. I've been able to get Coach Levitt, so he's been fantastic. So appreciate that opportunity to do that. So I just want to tell you that. Any cool Halloween stories real quick?
We're all good. The twins were good. One dressed as a superhero, one dressed as a nurse. They're still doing Halloween, and we got far too much candy. I need to give you some. I know you got to run.
And I'll be on Steinbrenner Friday night refereeing.
Steinbrenner High School in Tampa, right by us. Yes. You be well, brother.
All right, buddy. Have a great week.